Today I'll be showing you how the import process or workflow on the OSM Canada uh, tasking manager will work. This is a tutorial from A to Z, so if you do have parts that you do know, especially for the config part of this, you might want to skip over it, but for the most part, I'm going to be explaining everything that you need to know uh, concerning configuring JAWSOM to registering for an account. So here we go. So the first thing that you're going to need is an import account. This is very, very important. You're going to have to go to OpenStreetMap, sign up for a new account. Even if you do have an account for OpenStreetMap, you will need a actual account. If you do have a Gmail, you can use your email with the plus sign import at gmail.com, and what that will do is send you an email at this email address, but it will still use your email, but in the to field it will have the your email plus import, and you can create filters based upon that. Now, I'm not sure if this is supported in Yahoo or Hotmail, but I know it is supported with Gmail, and it is the easiest way to register for another account when you already have used your main email account without actually creating a new email just for an import account. So after you've registered and activated your account, specifically the import account, you're going to head over to JAWSOM, and we do need a couple of plugins. So you're going to go to the Edit Preferences, go to the Plugin tab, download the list initially if you haven't already have a list, and we're going to need the imagery offset dB and the imagery adjust, the terracer plugin, and as well as the building tools plugin. So once you have that all checked off, you're going to hit OK. It's going to restart JAWSOM, and you're going to have to come back into the preferences for remote control. This is essential for launching commands from either openstreetmap.org in the edit or the actual tasking manager. So you're going to the preferences under the remote tab, enable remote control, enable HTTPS support. Now, if you want HTTPS support, you are going to have to install the certificate, but this will only install the certificate for for Internet Explorer. Now, obviously, not very many people use Internet Explorer as their main browser, but if you are, just install the certificate. It's going to have a little pop-up message saying, for the next message, please press yes, and then you press OK on that message, and then afterwards you press yes as it says, and the certificate will be installed on your machine. I have already installed that certificate, so this does not apply to me. But if you are using another browser than Internet Explorer, well, good for you. You are going to have to do an extra step. So once we've enabled remote control, we press OK, go back to the browser, and you're going to want to go HTTPS / 127.0.0.1 colon 8112. And what that's going to do is try to connect to JOSM's remote control software. And you can go in advanced, add exception, and then get the certificate. You can see that it's a self-signed certificate, and then just confirm the security exception. There's not many places that have HTTPS support for the remote settings, but it is nice to know that you can add the exception to your browser because what it will do is essentially nothing. It won't remote control, and it will say, do you have remote control enabled? So this might be an issue for some people, but the OSM tasking manager has not been enabled on HTTPS for that reason. It's too specific of a problem to be have an actual fix for it. So once you've installed the plugins, the next step is to get to the actual tasking manager. So we'll just connect to the tasks.osmcanada.ca, select the project that is relevant to the current task. The current task will have instructions on how to map. Please read over them because they might have more up-to-date info than this video has. So in the description and in the instructions, it will explain on what to do. This video is to explain the general workflow of how it's going to work. So you're going to have to log into your OpenStreetMap account. It doesn't have to be the import account. It can be your main account because there is no association with that task. But if you want to log in with your import account, you can do so, or you can use your main OSM account. The next step is to select a tile from which there is no colors on. It is completely empty. And what you're going to do is go to Contribute, Start Mapping. And this button, by default, if you haven't already logged into a tasking manager, it will say Edit With, and then you have to select either JAWSM or other things. We are going to be using JAWSM exclusively. It is a lot more friendly for imports than ID. So you're going to hit Edit with JAWSM, and then the next time you're going to have the Edit with JAWSM button, so you can just click directly on it. Now what that's going to do is bring the data from OSM into JAWSM in a layer. And what you're going to want to do is create a filter. If you don't have that window open, go under Window Filter. It isn't open by default. And add a filter for building equals star. And then just hit Enter. Now what that's going to do is hide all the buildings or everything that has building something. Now we want the reverse, so we're going to invert the filter by selecting this checkbox. Now what that's also going to do is you're going to be able to see the data like the street data and other data that might be attached to like points. This one has Canvec interpolation data. If you want to hide that, you can select the checkbox right beside the other checkbox, and that will only show building data. Now, this can be an advantage if you don't like seeing the underlying data. It's a lot easier to spot where the buildings are without a bunch of grayed out data like this. The next step is to go back to the tasking manager in the task, and you're going to be downloading the building footprint. Once you've clicked on that, it will bring in the new building footprints from the actual data source to JOSM in a new layer. As you can see, it's brought in building data into JOSM. So far, the building data only has building yes, the source being City of Ottawa. So if we go back to the first layer, we will be able to see that it already has data on the map, and what we're going to want to do is merge the data between the both layers so that we don't have duplication of data or lose history upon the buildings. So we're going to go to the actual layer up here where we can see that there's actual buildings that already exist on the OSM layer. So we're going to select them by hitting S either once or twice until we get that loop or rope kind of object, and we'll just select, say, these two buildings. And what we'll do is go over to Edit, Merge Selection. Make sure that you don't have any extra nodes that you don't want, as this will be copied over to the target layer. So once the merge selection, everything that's selected will be merged to the layer selected here. So for us, the OpenStreetMap data layer is layer 1, so we'll make sure that that's selected, and we'll merge that data down. Now, this only creates a copy of the data on data layer 1. So once you have merged the selection down, hit delete on the upper layer so that we don't have duplication of data, and head over to the first layer. Now, the advantage of the utils plugin is that it has a merge geometry, and it's smart enough to know which one is the more recent one versus which one is the older one, and you can select it in any order that you want, and go over to more tools and hit replace geometry. Now what that's going to do is keep the ID for the way item, and it will replace all the little nodes with the current nodes. Now you don't want to do this if the data is already accurate. This is why you should have the Bing aerial map out, or even the Mapbox satellite view. And what you're going to want to do is try to have everything look like it's aligned with the city data, as that data is a lot more accurate. As we can see, there's some miscalibration, so we'll go over to imagery and set a new offset, and then we can just drag the imagery to align with the city's outlines so that it's more accurate for that. Now, going back to the actual merge layer or the replace geometry, if you see that this geometry is inaccurate or there's more buildings, do not use the City of Ottawa's data. Um, there may be uh, more construction that's been done uh, since the actual survey. So make sure that everything looks correct before just blindly replacing the geometry. If the geometry is not correct, well, delete whatever you imported from the City of Ottawa and just leave the actual building outline. In this case, it's not the case, as the building outline here with the City of Ottawa is less accurate than the actual building outline that's present in OpenStreetMap. So select the two ways, and we're going to go over to More Tools and use the Replace Geometry function. Now, this will bring up a conflict of the tags that may be different between the two. In this case, building might be residential or yes, but yes is the actual City of Ottawa data that is incorrect. Everything is building yes by default. So if you do have any specifications like residential, commercial, industrial, please select the appropriate values. Meanwhile, source, there may be buildings from NRCan or CanVec data. This is going to be changed to the City of Ottawa, as the building outline it comes from the City of Ottawa, or whatever project you are working on. It's going to be the actual building source. For other tags, you're going to have to use your judgment on which are the most appropriate tags for conflicting tags. So once we hit apply, what that's going to do is replace the old blocky geometry that was there with the new ones, and this will keep the history within the OpenStreetMap community. So if anybody goes here and goes and looks at the history for the actual way, I just press Control H to bring up the history for the way. We're going to see that SD Harnern or something like that has edited, and on top of that, we've changed the actual way outline for the building. So their contribution will be still attributed to that building, and that they've traced the actual building from previous work. Theirs was in 2013, so obviously maps get better and need changing. So keeping the history and contribution history is important for the community. So please don't just go and delete buildings that you think that are incorrect. So once you are done with the actual conflation and merging of the data, and you want to upload, go to the validator. You may not have that window open, so you are going to open the validation results under Windows and hit the validate button. Now, what you're going to want to do is correct any warnings or errors that you may have, especially in the new data versus the OSM data. Uh, and you're going to have to correct the errors that come up so that we don't put errors onto the map, uh, like the unknown country code. Somebody has actually put a country code uh, for Hemlock Private as Ontario, which shouldn't be acceptable, but somebody's done it. Uh, on the OSM layer, if you don't want to do the actual fixing of data, you can do it on the downloaded layer from the OSM task and hit the validator before you start merging uh, the actual data and fix any errors that may come up. Like that one was duplicate nodes, crossing buildings. You can right click and zoom to problem. Uh, this one seems to have like two ways attached to it instead of uh, just one. So you're going to have to fix the actual errors that may come up so that we won't be adding errors to the map to fix. And once that's done, make sure that your under your preferences in the connection, you are using your import account because any anybody that's importing under their usual account risks getting blocked or may get reverted by the admins. So use your import account, and once you are done, hit the upload button on the OSM layer, and then after that has been uploaded with the source data being the city of Ottawa for this task anyways, and after that hit the upload button on the actual uh, uh, layer that you've downloaded from the OSM Ottawa. Or what you can do if you want to avoid even more problems is actually merge the layer that actually has the OS not OSM data, but the City of Ottawa data. Merge that down to the first layer. That way, if you have any overlapping like buildings versus a river, you can hit the validator, and you'll see that there are errors that occur, or there may not be, but obviously I didn't merge down the buildings, so there's going to be a bunch of overlapping ways. So if you merge the layer down on top of the OSM layer, that's the safest bet. That way you can correct all the errors within JOSM and then upload them with the source data being the City of Ottawa. Once you're done uploading for a task, you can go back to the OSM Tasking Manager, mark the tile as being done. Now this is for the building task. In this task, we are using the validation layer as saying that the addresses of it have been imported. So what you what you do is once you've imported the buildings and conflated them with the existing data, you mark the tile as complete. That means that the building data has been imported correctly. So onto the address data, you can you go into review the tile, edit with JOSM again, just like you've done before. And once you have that data, instead of hitting the click to download building footprints, you'll be downloading the address nodes. Same process, it opens within JOSM. You'll have the building tags on a new OSM layer. Now, what you're going to have to make sure is that the address nodes, for example, this one right here, well, the address nodes are not in the proper location. They're in the backyard, which you can clearly see with Bing data. You're just going to have to move them to the proper location. They are on the parcel of land, but some address nodes may be in the backyard of the actual building and not within the new building footprint. And that is going to cause issues with merging down the addresses. Now, once you're satisfied that all the addresses are on the proper tiles, go down and merge the layer to the OSM layer. And what that's going to do is bring down the addresses. And to simplify things, you are going to select with the ropey tool again. Just select buildings and addresses. Doesn't really matter which. And go into more data and merge address points. Now, this is where moving the actual address nodes to the proper building footprint is important, because if you have only one address point within a building footprint, what that's going to do is automatically merge it down. And if it's, say, on a garage, well, it's going to merge it, unfortunately, to that garage. So that's the actual step that you need to take to make sure that it's in the building and not in the backyard, sort of like this one. So if we go to data, merge address points, it's going to automatically merge the proper address points and not merge the interpolation data. So if they're points, well, they'll be merged to the actual building. If you have it outside the building, well, you're going to have to move it in. Shift click to select both. You can terrace this way by pressing Shift T on a Windows machine, but it's under More Tools, Terrace Building, and that will actually bring that address down. Now, if you have a building that has multiple addresses, say for instance, I'm just going to delete this for demonstration purposes. If you had selected, say, this one, and went to data and merge address points, well, it's going to tell you that there's more than one address inside, and you may have to terrace the building yourself. Now, if it's okay if the building is a rectangle, you're going to be able to select the actual address nodes with the rectangle and go into uh, tools, terrace building, and obviously it can't reverse because it's merged to that one, but it will create the separations for you. Now, with buildings that have this, we are going to have to split the building down based on satellite imagery or surveying. If you do not feel comfortable with splitting down a terrace, it doesn't it's not that big of a deal as long as the address data is in the proper location. Geo-referencing or geocoding of the address will geocode to the proper location, and people will be able to terrace it later. At a later date. But for buildings that have a single address node, please merge down the addresses as it doesn't serve a purpose to have an address node on top of a building that only has one address. But for buildings that do have multiple addresses and you don't feel comfortable terracing the actual building itself via satellite imagery, well, you can leave those on top of the building for other people to actually come in and update that data for you. So once you've completed that, you will upload the data to OpenStreetMap with the source being City of Ottawa for this task anyways, and go back to the tasking manager and mark it as validated. Now, for this project, it's sort of special in that aspect where we're using the validation as the marking as the address points being imported versus the buildings. We are going to have building validation scripts via the via overpass queries to actually validate that all of the addresses and building footprints have been imported for this project. This will be taken care of with other people than the actual importers. This task is mostly for importing the building footprints and the address nodes, and more determining if this actual tile has been completed or not. So that is the summary of the workflow concerning the tasking manager for building footprints and addresses. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them on the Talk.ca OpenStreetMap mailing list, and happy mapping!